Hello, my name's Mark Smith. I'm the founder and director of Family Tree Counseling Associates in Carmel, Indiana, just north of Indianapolis. And I am the author of the ebook Managing Abandonment Issues Through Recovery. I just recorded a video where I discussed what abandonment issues were, and now I'm going to address what causes abandonment issues. What are abandonment issues caused by? The first point I want to make is it really doesn't matter what they're caused by. If a couple comes to my office and one of them has irrational jealousies that lead them to be intrusive and crazy acting and reactive and mean, where they're projecting their abandonment issues onto their spouse, it doesn't really matter what caused them. They got them. You can argue with me all day about, my mom and dad were there for me. I don't care. You are acting irrationally. Now, it's better if we can figure out what happened in your childhood, because that is what it's rooted in your childhood. And 99 times out of 100, I can do that pretty simply, and it's very easy to figure out. The other 1%, I'm like, it doesn't matter how you got them. You got them, so let's fix them. So abandonment issues are caused by being abandoned as a child, period. There's a lot of different ways to be abandoned as a child. I just had that song run through my head of, there's 50 ways to leave your lover. Drop out the back, Jack. Drop off the key, Lee. Well, there's a million ways to abandon your children, unfortunately. So, it can be a death of a parent. It's probably the worst. Probably the worst is a suicide of a parent when you're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. That's the worst. You're in trouble if that's your story, because Mother Nature's way of helping us heal is to cause us to be attracted to people who will love us the way we're loved growing up. And if one of your parents committed suicide when you were very young, you're going to pick abandoners, and you're going to pick ruthless abandoners. For many years I worked with a gal whose father committed suicide when she was little, and she would pick men who would abandon her in big ways and medium ways and small ways, and frequently she would overreact to any movement away from her by her significant other, because she was just ultra sensitive. She was terrified at her core of being abandoned again. I had another fellow whose mother committed suicide when he was like 4, and his dating life was a tragic scene, strewn with mean and vicious women who would ruthlessly abandon him time and time again. So early death of a parent that isn't suicide, that's pretty brutal. The most common form of abandonment that I hear of is mom and dad got divorced, and then dad just sort of checked out. He might have been in town, he might have moved to Timbuktu, but he wasn't involved. Some people never even meet their parents. Another form of abandonment is adoption, being adopted out. Another, probably the number 2, and it's close to being number 1, is both parents are there, but one or both aren't really there. Dad's drinking, Dad's working, Dad's watching TV, Dad is just otherwise occupied with himself or with an addiction. Mom is depressed. Mom doesn't want to get out of bed. Mom's taking Valium. Mom is working. Mom is otherwise occupied. It only takes one parent to abandon you to give you really severe abandonment issues. Favoritism is another really severe form of abandonment. Both parents could appear to be loving, but if they worshipped your older brother, you're pretty much screwed, because you're going to pick people who favor other and pick others over you the rest of your life. Birth order plays a role in how the family breaks down, and sometimes it just happens that there's a circumstance or situation, the illness of a child. Maybe a child is particularly smart or athletically gifted, but however it shakes out, if there was favoritism and you got the short end of it, you're going to live on the short end of that, the rest of your life in terms of who you're attracted to. So many times I'll get somebody in my office and they'll tell me, but I didn't feel abandoned. I don't care that my dad, left when I was 2. I don't remember the man. Didn't affect me in the least. I know my dad was drinking and he was off at work or he was drunk, but I didn't feel abandoned. I was running the neighborhoods with my buddies, riding my bike. Well, you don't have to feel abandoned to be abandoned, because Mother Nature, or God, if you will, provides, if there's this is a circle, it provides a defense around the circle, psychological defense mechanisms, to where the purpose of those defense mechanisms is so that you don't have to feel the bad stuff when you're little. Because if we all felt the full implications of the bad stuff when we were little, it would have destroyed us all. We'd all be alcoholics or in psychiatric hospitals or committing suicide. So the fact that you didn't feel abandoned has nothing to do at all with whether or not you were. If your dad was an alcoholic, if he left when you were 2, if he died when you were 5, if your mom died, if your mom ran off with the mailman, I don't care if you felt abandoned. You were abandoned. And all I have to do is check out your dating history and document that with you looking at a whiteboard with me writing them down to prove to you beyond a shadow of any rational doubt that you were impacted by the abandonment of your parent. Little kids are needy little creatures. And they desperately need the love and attention and the commitment of a father and a mother all through their childhood, through life. I mean, it's not like you can't be abandoned once you're 18 years old. So, abandonment issues impact you whether you think they do or not. The big truth teller in life is your love life. You can be a workaholic at work. You can cut yourself off from your family of origin. You can be fierce and beast-like in your focus. But your love life's going to get you eventually, because you will pick a carbon copy of whoever hurt you the most, or the polar opposite, which is going to get you in trouble too. And someday, usually between about 33 and 58, it'll eat your lunch. I'm not being negative. I'm just telling you, how abandonment issues will impact your life. You can not believe me, if you're under 35, or if you haven't gone through the experience yet. But let my words ring in your head down the road, because you might have some severe abandonment pain coming your direction. So, again, Mother Nature provided those psychological defense mechanisms to help us survive our childhood, but then we're stuck with them. Somebody who's 22 and they just left home, they are psychologically all batten down the hatches. They got their walls up. They have no clue who they are. They have no clue who they're marrying if they marry that young. And you can't tell them much of anything. Somebody comes in my office who's 25, I really don't want to work with them because they're not ready. They're not broken. They're not humble. They're sort of arrogant, and they're not teachable. So what people don't understand is the purpose of love and dating and marriage is to break you, and it's to make you friggin' miserable. Am I right? Are you miserable? I get so many couples then, and I'll say the purpose of marriage is to make you friggin' miserable. You guys have a good marriage. Why would I want to fix it? You both seem pretty friggin' miserable. They always laugh, but I'm serious as a heart attack. The purpose of marriage is to make you miserable, ultimately, because you're going to pick somebody who's put together like the people who hurt you the most. So many times when I have a couple come in and there's been some form of abandonment, like let's say the husband has had an affair, many times I'll begin the session by asking the wife in that case, I'll say, who abandoned you when you were a child? Because I already know that at least one parent did abandon them. And very frequently the answer will be, how'd you know? And also, well, my dad died when I was 4, or my mom ran away when I was 6, or my dad was an alcoholic and he never took me to the movies. So if you've been abandoned in the worst way possible, in the worst ways possible, if you're married, probably the worst way is if your spouse commits suicide. Second worst way is if they have an affair. If that has happened to you, I guarantee you that you were abandoned as a child. And when couples come in to see me, I prove that to them just by digging through their family background and then presenting them with that information. So this is where abandonment issues come from. And when you have abandonment issues, it really causes problems. It causes miscommunications, conflicts, ugly fights. You know what I'm talking about. So in order to make those fights happen less often and with less intensity, you need to have a great deal of insight about abandonment issues. You need to become an authority on abandonment issues, whether you're the spouse who suffers because your spouse has abandonment issues, or whether you're the person that has abandonment issues. Either way, you need to know. And that's where my book comes in. My ebook that was released October the 5th of this year, Managing Abandonment Issues Through Recovery, goes through and breaks down 20 couples that I've worked with in my 27 years as a therapist, and gives detailed examples of exactly how abandonment showed itself with them. And you cannot know too much about this subject. The next video I'm going to make is I'm going to discuss a couple who have had a great deal of insight about their abandonment issues, and that's reducing their ugly conflicts probably by about 90%. So awareness makes all the difference. You can't fix abandonment issues, but you can manage them, and you manage them by having insight. And the best tool that I'm aware of anywhere to help you have insight into your abandonment issues is my book, Managing Abandonment Issues Through Recovery. You can get it by coming to our website, familytreecounseling.com. About third way down the book, there's the website. There's a link where you just hit a book. It'll take you to a page where there's a lot of information, and then you can click to buy the book. So it will help you immensely. It'll be the best money you've ever spent. I promise you that. So, well, thank you for your time and for your attention. And I wish you well. I wish you the best in your recovery from abandonment issues. Thanks.